Derek O'Brien.
Sir, 17 years is a long, long time in the life of, I suppose, all of us here in Rajya Sabha, who may have met a friend 17 years ago, or the friend may not be here today. And 17 years is also a long time in the life of Parliament. Sir, it's been a fascinating journey for 17 years. And if you go back to 2000, the year 2000, 17, because the first proposal for this empowered committee to examine GST, even before the Congress party announced it in their budget speech, which was announced by Mr. Chidambaram, I remember. But the first concept was actually, when I was looking through and doing the research, was actually floated by Mr. Vajpayee. And that was in 2000. But no one really bothered about that abbreviation GST in 2000 till it was taken up by the UPA much later. In 2000, people were all obsessed with another abbreviation, which was not GST. It was actually KBC, Kaun Banega Crorepati, because that was the year of Kaun Banega Crorepati, and an international format was taken, which was a very well accepted and a very successful international format, and it was brought to India and given it an Indian feel by the great Amitabh Bachchan and Siddharth Basu, and they created a winning show. Now, I know if the finance minister was here, he'd probably tell me that, Derek, this is not a quiz show, this is Parliament. Fair enough, but I think the point here is that over the 17 years, this has evolved, and we today have something which I think we would all be very proud of. I've had the privilege of representing my party on the select committee and also speaking the last time here on GST. So I will get to the economics of it, but since everyone before me has felt a little shy to talk about the politics of it, let me indulge, because I'm sitting, I wouldn't like to say in the middle, but we are sitting in this arc, and this arc is a nice place to see what is happening this side and what is happening this side. So GST, when I was looking back for the last 17 years, is actually, GST is go, slow, and there's a T. Now I'll tell you what I mean by GS. Go means when you're in government, you go for it. But when you're in opposition, then you slow it down. So that's the go and the slow. We've been seeing this with our two parties, and there's the arc in the middle who have been being the thrust. So the thrust, okay? Be it the SP, be it the BSP, be it the JDU, be it the NCP, be it the Trinamool, be it the left front, and all in the DMK. All of us have tried to be the thrust. We want... I thought T is for Trinamool. Yeah. See, you see, Jairam, we are not predictable. Okay. So I think today is not to take credit for who did it, but I think everyone got together and we've got this together. But I think I'm going to talk a little later about the economics of it, and let's begin with the politics of GST. So let's go back to the 13th Finance Commission, the former ex-chairman, Dr. Vijay Kelkar, when the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance had a meeting. I have two quotes here from the state of Gujarat. This was 2012. From the state of Gujarat. Quote, while the loss of revenue, now this is 2012 Gujarat, while the loss of revenue is expected due to removal of cascading effect, unacceptable revenue losses would arise on account of the inability to achieve revenue neutral rates, the loss of CST revenues, and the suboptimal collections from the service sector. This is Gujarat 2012. Let's go to another state, Madhya Pradesh. This is Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance. And I think this is a good day to record all this. So when everyone wants to take the credit, then we all know who was where when. Madhya Pradesh. Fiscal health of the states is likely to deteriorate because of the substantial tax revenue loss. They will not be able to mobilize additional resources for development and they cannot change the rate structure of the most important tax instrument available to them. I'll go on with another example. And I must give the BJP credit. What they put up in their 2000 manifesto, they've been courteous enough, they haven't yet removed it from their website. That's good, owning up. This is what the BJP 2009 manifesto said. Quote, CST will be abolished and GST will be rationalized between 12 and 14%. Then why did you oppose the bill when it was introduced in 2011? I'm not here to score points. Actually, I'm just here to raise some level of conscience that when you're taking credit, please understand where you were and where you've come across the board. Now, how can we leave out Twitter, sir? So 27th of February 2014, on GST, without proper IT, without proper infrastructure, GST will become difficult to implement, unquote. The then Chief Minister of a state in Western India, Gujarat. Then one more. They haven't addressed the concerns. Centre's preparation on GST is thoroughly inadequate. That's the tweet of 2014. Sir, I have two, three more quotes because this establishes my point a little strongly. This is the Madhya Pradesh Finance Minister. He had this to say: changes are not acceptable to us as they will end all the autonomy of the states and they kill the spirit of parliamentary democracy. This is the Finance Minister of Madhya Pradesh. And of course, the person I had the pleasure of meeting when I was in the select committee because he came and deposed was the Gujarat Finance Minister Saurabh Patel. I remember in Mumbai when we were deposing, quote unquote from there, this is a nice crisp quote, it says, "It is completely against fiscal federalism," unquote. So this kind of illness or this kind of condition, we accept that it's a kind of condition as we move along, whether it's on GST, whether it's on FDI, whether it's on Manrega, where people sit depends on what stand they want to take. So much for who is sitting where. Sir, my party, led by Mamta Di in the Trinamool Congress, sir. So we are sitting in this arc, our 2006 manifesto, 9 manifesto, 11 manifesto, 14 manifesto, 2016 manifesto. We promised 3 things on GST. We promised that we will support the idea, we will promise we supported the implementation, and as we've done in the last 3-4 years as a responsible opposition party, after the idea and the implementation, we promised the third eye. We do believe we've reflected and we've provided some insights which have helped us move along. So when we look at the consensus for GST, yes, there was a lot of consensus, and this government ought to be given credit where they pushed for consensus and got consensus. And I'll tell you one, which is just one example. The exemption of the category of petroleum, tobacco products, interstate transactions. This was broadly the consensus, and I appreciate what the Congress speaker was saying in the beginning, that he was looking for perfection. Now, who defines perfection? Does the Congress party define perfection, or does the BJP define perfection? I think this is a very good example where perfection was not achieved, it will never be achieved, but the parties in the middle helped us get to somewhere nearest perfection. So on the consensus, there were differences, and we sorted those differences out, and be it on petroleum, there were 3 members from the Congress party, and there were about 8 or 9 of us from the ARC, and then there was the BJP. So this got addressed because that was the broad opinion. Sir, 2 very important points from the select committee. We had about 22 meetings. The chairman is here, Bhupendra. We spent 8 meetings on one subject, but we arrived at a solution. And these, I think, were the turning points of reaching a consensus, sir. 1, the states, it was written in the bill, may compensate the states. The center, I beg your pardon, the center may compensate the states. We had to hear all the legal, including from lawyers on both sides, saying there's no difference between may and shall. It means the same thing. But for all the laity in the select committee, we thought there's a big difference, you know. You may die, you shall die. So that was a good consensus. We moved from may to shall. And the second one, which took us 4 months, earlier it said up to 5 years. So the center could compensate the states up to 5 years, which was changed to, after a lot of pushing and shoving, not up to 5 years, but shall compensate for 5 years. So these were the two major points of consensus. Then when the select committee finished and we got to the GST Council, there are 2 days, and significantly these were 2 meetings of the GST Council held in Kolkata. The chairman of the chairman of the GST Council was the minister, the finance minister was the chairman, and the West Bengal finance minister was the, what is the designation? Chairman of the Empowered Committee. So this, if you look at those minutes, and history should record these minutes, for the first time all states reached a consensus on GST in the Empowered Committee meeting held on June 16. That's when the finance minister made that statement, that we've actually got to a consensus. So that was a historic meeting, sir. Sir, there were other issues, and I want to dwell a little on the Empowered Committee, because the Empowered Committee, because this is also about giving credit where it's due. The Empowered Committee was responsible, and this is not about one party, this is across all the finance ministers on the Empowered Committee. Very quickly, sir. One was keeping small businesses under 20 lakhs out of the GST ambit. That came from there. Giving coastal states the right to tax economic activities within 12 nautical miles. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Finance Minister, that also came from there. The states would have the power to administer 90% of SSCs with an annual turnover of 1.5 crores. That also came from there. And the very crucial point of MSME, which remained a sticking point for a long, long while, about the 50 lakh turnover and the composition scheme for the tax. So there was a lot of work which happened there, and I would be failing in my duty here, speaking here in Parliament, and not acknowledging beyond the politics the tremendous effort made by the Empowered Committee. And I'm so proud that my colleague, Dr. Amit Mitra, was the chairman of that committee. So now let's come to, I was talking about one party's views then and one party's views now. I want to come to the broader picture now, whether you talk about being a money bill or this concept of bypassing the Rajya Sabha. Because there is no doubt, not only there's no use getting emotional and sentimental about it that we are getting bypassed, this is a serious issue. And here again, it's a then and now syndrome. And I'm glad the leader of the House is here, as I say, because the leader of the House said this in his earlier avatar, and I quote, "Parliament's job is to conduct discussions, but many a time, Parliament is used to ignore issues, and in such situations, obstruction of Parliament is in the favor of democracy. Therefore, parliamentary obstruction is not undemocratic." No privilege on me because Mr. Jaitley is still sitting there and he hasn't objected to him having said this. But that was then. Now, quote, "We're ready for discussion. Why are you opposition running away from discussion?" We've learned from you, sir, because these are the words. As to where you sit depends on where, the stand you take. And in fact, this whole concept, I'm reading Mr. Jaitley's blog, I think about 2 years ago, and he's spoken publicly on this. This whole concept of the Rajya Sabha. You know, talking about the Rajya Sabha being equivalent of the House of Lords, almost like saying in Rajya Sabha, we can have a pause button, but we can't have a stop button. Why? Because the House of Lords has a pause button. But the House of Lords, through you, sir, to the Leader of the House, the House of Lords, the composition of the House of Lords is a very, very different composition. 12 members here are nominated because they've excelled in certain fields. The rest of us here have all been elected by MLAs in our state. And the House of Lords is a house of privilege. The House of Lords is absolutely a house of privilege. You were some grandson of some peer and you got elected to the House of Lords. So using that as an example, or for that matter, using some of the other European countries to demean us at the Rajya Sabha, that becomes a problem. And I appeal to the Leader of the House. You know, in fact, there's in a light-hearted way, the great footballers of the world, Messi, Pele, Maradona, they all had number 10 jersey. If our Leader of the House had to wear a football jersey, it wouldn't be 10, it would be 110. Because everything is Article 110 and comes through in this manner. But that said in a lighter vein. So I'm saying it seriously then. If Mr. Chidambaram is prompting me to be serious, okay. I know 110 is the serious point. I put it across in a more friendly manner. Don't dilute. Right. In fact, the best example of our Rajya Sabha playing a constructive role through you, sir, to the Leader of the House, the best example. Where was this GST bill without the Rajya Sabha? Where was this GST bill? If nobody else should convince, at least the chairman of the select committee, the very articulate, very composed and very balanced Bhupendra should convince his other party members. What was the role of the GST? How did we work so hard? For me, this is my first term as a parliamentarian, and this has been my most wonderful experience for the last 5 years, being on the select committee. And as I come to the end of my term in another few weeks, I think I felt so of learning so much. So the best example of this is that. Now the next you'll tell me is GST Council. Now the GST Council is very nice. It is represented in a federal way. We appreciate that. And the composition is very, very nice. Now, as much as we say that we are all behind this bill, we want this to happen on July 1, and of course it will happen on July 1, we have one issue with one of those amendments. So I'll come back to that. I want to come back and stick with my point to the Rajya Sabha because we've done a lot of talking on the politics of the GST. I want to talk a little about the economics of the GST also. Sir, one little statistic about the Rajya Sabha, sir. The winter session of 2010, when the BJP was in opposition, 22 days due to the 2G scam. This is the longest logjam since independence. The BJP was in opposition from 2004 to 2009. 423 hours have been lost. This is the record in legislative history. So when the BJP starts giving us sermons and lectures on being a responsible opposition, you know, that is very, very difficult to digest. So I've told you about the select committee. Sir, now on some suggestions in the spirit of giving you insights, because as I said, since everyone is fighting about whose idea was GST, we really believe GST is not your baby, not your baby. The baby was born somewhere in the middle, so at least give us some credit, but doesn't matter whose baby, it's a nice baby which is born. Sir, I have, in the spirit of ideas, in the spirit of implementation, and in the spirit of... Yeah. Too many fathers may be, but the mother is sitting in the middle. Okay, so we have some practical suggestions or insights, if I may. So the first one is if a dealer, these are quick little suggestions which can be implemented or perhaps been taken care of in the rules. If a dealer sells an air conditioner and also provides installation, now he's paying GST up as per the structure. The dealer is paying 28% to the air conditioner or to the product and 18% to the installation. to the service. So this makes it very interesting or enticing for the dealer to switch more of the cost under the head of service and less on the product. So we want you to consider and think how we can address this. The second one, sir. This example, in fact, was given by Arvind Subramaniam, if I remember right. So the second one is a television set. Now you, in the exchange offer, which happens on televisions or cars or so many things you exchange. So when you give back your old, I'm using the example of television but can apply to all. So when you give back your old television which costs 10,000 rupees and you pay 30,000 rupees for a television which is 40,000, but the GST is being calculated not on 30,000 but on the 40,000. So that's a point to consider, somewhere a solution in the rules. So the third suggestion from the Trinamool Congress, yes sir, I'll say this again, when we oppose something, we oppose it strongly. When we back something like GST, we back it strongly. And when we criticize you also, we criticize you strongly, but when we make suggestions, we make it with a positive spirit. So, on the arrest clause, take the example of West Bengal. I think barring Gujarat, which has it, and no one has been arrested for it, for above 2 crore tax violation. In Bengal, sir, tax collection has doubled in the last 5 years, and we don't have the power to arrest. Everything is going fine. Sir, and the final suggestion here is on fitment. There are almost 4,000 items, sir, whose rates are yet to be fixed. Basic rates have been fixed, 0, 1, 5, 12, whatever. But what about the rate of the individual commodities? I mean, is there a plan in place for the individual commodities? Because then we think there may be a problem of fitment. If one tax rate is 15, then how will it fit between 12 and 18? We would like you to address that, sir. Sir, I want to go back to my reading these days has also become a little boring because all I'm doing is reading only old speeches of, but it's good fun, of great parliamentarians and some of them who are sitting in this house. So this one I read was, again, Mr. Jaitley. If you want to build consensus, you need a big heart. You said this, sir. If you want to build consensus, you need a big heart. You need a non-discriminatory approach. You need to be fair. You need to consider the opposition as an essential part of India's democracy and not a political enemy. Right, sir? This is what Mr. Jaitley said. In that spirit, I am coming to one amendment, and this is not taking some panga and wanting to move an amendment. I believe the Congress party, I've moved an amendment, and I believe the Congress party, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, has moved the amendment, and there may be some others. But please do not let us get into a political slugfest over this. The point is whether we move the amendment, whether the amendment passes, because it will go to Lok Sabha, and then the bill will pass in any case. What is the point of this amendment, sir? Sir, the point of this amendment is the GST Council is a strong federal body, no doubt about it. But when the GST Council makes a recommendation, our humble submission is it has to go Parliament. It has to come to Parliament. You cannot then expect to bypass Parliament and then hope everything will be all right. The counter argument to this could be then you are taking away the federal structure. You are taking away the federal structure because the GST Council itself has a federal structure. So this is the point, and I'm very open, we are very open with this, whether the finance minister will take it in the spirit of having a big heart. Sir, those basically is the summary, a little bit of modern history, a little bit of reality of the politics, some constructive suggestions, because the Trinamool Congress, for us, this GST is very, very important. We've been promising it and promising it and promising it, and now, no matter what the differences are, it seems that we're all set to roll out on July the 1st. I started with the famous quiz show, Kaun Banega Crorepati, KBC. At least now we've answered the question which the nation has been asking, which is KBC, Kab Banega Consensus. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.